Hey everyone, Coach Powers here, answering another one of your questions. This time, one of you asked, how do you feel about people developing agoraphobia for the first time in their lives during benzo withdrawal? I've always had anxiety and been a nervous person, even on benzos, but never had agoraphobia until withdrawal. And it manifested all 3 times they tried to take me off in different ways: cold turkey, slow taper, rush taper. I've had counselors not believe me that this is possible. What are your thoughts? Okay, so let's start at the end there. You have counselors that don't believe this is possible. That's a huge red flag. I mean, that's almost another tirade I could go on in regards to what's lacking in this country in mental health. And I've said this before, but the condensed version is we're producing worse therapists, it seems. I mean, the days of Freud and Jung and Adler and Beck and all these innovative people, it just seems to be going away. And a lot of that is it's political, it's insurance. They don't allow you to kind of play jazz to come up with new things. It's really a conundrum. I mean, everything has to be peer reviewed along the way. So it almost creates this box that none of us can kind of, step outside to test things, really. It's really tough. You have to almost start from a distance of research. But anyway, that's another topic, but maybe some of you follow what I'm saying here. The gist is that we're condensing mental health into quicker sessions, workbooks, less, qualified people. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater in a sense. We've thrown out so much psychotherapy, personality, ego therapy, ego psychology. Like, there's a lot of things that we've been, that set the basis for psychology over thousands of years, literally. And we were throwing it all out, and now it's just we're very much treating mental illness with like an antihistamine or some anti-rash cream. So that needs to be said. And just these therapists or counselors that don't believe it's possible, it's really a lack of education and understanding. That would be my argument. I think it's a pretty good argument. So, how do you feel about people developing agoraphobia for the first time in their lives during benzo withdrawal? I mean, it makes complete sense. Now, let's look at the other part of your sentence. You said, I've always had anxiety and been a nervous person, even on the benzos. But it wasn't until, you came off the benzos that you started to develop full-blown agoraphobia. So this is a case where when I often say we were already on thin ice. And coming off benzos was the extra weight needed to break the ice. I mean, that's even a line I put in this benzo recovery film. I mean, it's that important to me. It's that central that we were already on thin ice. I was on thin ice too. I didn't realize it as much anyway. I mean, I started taking benzos for a muscle relaxer, but damn, I look back on my life and it was like PTSD and trauma and anxiety and depression and self-efficacy and self-esteem and like family issues and alcoholism and drug issues. And, it was a mess. And I look back and it just would be easier to gloss over every little thing and act like none of that had any part or played no role in my overall mental health, or how I was trying to cope or heal or grow. So a lot of us were on thin ice on some degree, right? And coming off benzos just was that weight. It was the extra weight needed. Maybe if we didn't get on benzos, maybe different things in our life would have ironed out and the ice never would have broke. But nonetheless, a lot of us were on thin ice. So if you already had anxiety and were a nervous person before benzos and on benzos, okay, well, so now what we're looking at is, a predisposition. We're looking at a biological factor here, what I always kind of, in a way, reduce down to being a wonky fight or flight system. Like I say, benzo withdrawal is largely a stress disorder. It's a stress disease. It's a stress response. So coming off this, you're already, we're someone with this part of their brain, with this chemistry, with thoughts and symbolism and beliefs and life structuring, development, all of this stuff that plays a role into why you were already anxious and nervous. And it was so prevalent and so strong that even on the benzos, it was peeking through, which to me might suggest there might be some either, could be more chemistry, but then again, it almost to me sounds more psychological because you can fight the benzo, and if your symbolisms and your beliefs and your thoughts are that profound, it will prevent you from being able to ever fully relax and kind of upregulate the glutamates and GABA and things like that. It's kind of more deeper rooted, which in some ways is a better phenomenon because it's not, to me, biology is the harder thing to treat. I mean, it's genetics is a genetics. I mean, it's a little bit a little more of an uphill battle. But when it's more cognitive, behavioral, mental, emotional, affective, that we can get in there and really do some work and completely change our perception and thereby change our chemistry. We'll come back to that another time. So, to the point, why do you develop agoraphobia coming off benzos? Why do so many of us develop it? I did. I never had agoraphobia before coming off benzos, I can tell you that. But I was a shy person, before that at times, especially in my childhood. I was shy at school. I remember going to school for the first day where you had to go find your classrooms, and oh God, I hated it. I was always like so scared, walking around. I'm going to be late. What if I can't find it? Everything felt so big and intimidating, So some of us have that predisposition. We have a little bit of if nothing else, a hypervigilant, hypersensitive fight or flight center of the brain. So that's the cards we were dealt. Now, what can we do about that? I think we can do a lot. I mean, I think we can really get in there, both psychologically, like I was saying, through therapy and counseling and changing our symbolisms and our beliefs and perception, but also just biologically, physiologically, what can we do to promote neuroplasticity and systemic desensitization, to help our brain adapt to the environment it is in, because that is one powerful thing that the brain has. I mean, one could say that's the whole purpose of its development, right? So it's like, which is bigger, that instinctual, evolutionary installed ability to overwrite, fight or flight stimulus in the environment so that the organism can, reach homeostasis, stabilize, and proliferate, or a kind of wonky kink in the system, hence a hypervigilant fight or flight system, or maybe there was some trauma, or maybe there was some child abuse, or however it came about. So I suspect, evolution and evolutionary insurance, in regards to that fight or flight, that ability of our brain, our fight or flight system's ability to adapt to a rough environment is more important and greater than the alternative, right? And that's good news. And I mean, that may sound like, what is Dave talking about? Is pseudo? Is he rambling? No. I mean, really follow me there. And if not, go back, listen to that last 2 minutes again. It's critical. And I often say, look, you can find kids playing kickball in a street 2 hours after a bombing, in Baghdad or something, let's say a war zone. I mean, you can find videos online where guys are swimming and kissing face to face with a shark, an alligator, a grizzly bear. I mean, these are snake, these are primal instincts, tied into our fight or flight, more than instincts, they're reflexes. You don't have to be an intelligent person. Thankfully, evolution has put in us an instinct that says, you see this grizzly bear? Don't try to kiss it. You see that alligator? Don't go. You see that snake? Don't try to pick it up. Avoid spiders. You see that cliff? Don't walk off it. There's this whole chunk of our brain that's all based in evolution. I mean, it's really unconscious. It's instinct stuff based on survival. So that's what we're talking about. And so a lot of my program and my approach is like, hey, let's help utilize this part of the brain, this primal, the oldest part of the brain. Let's see if we can make it work for us, because conversely, it's worked against us in a very similar way that it could work for us. I mean, it's just something the wires got twisted, and the nervous system thinks it's helping us and it's hurting us, right? And that's what agoraphobia is, essentially. It's an overwhelmed nervous system that has come to believe that everything around it is a potential danger. Everything around us has become a grizzly bear. Me checking the mail. Is there a grizzly bear out there? Is there a bomb going to go off? The grocery store, driving my car, all of it. Someone shows up at my door and suddenly that fight or flight center is rocked, and your heart rate goes up and you're breathing faster and you're feeling dizzy and everything in you is sort of, your adrenaline's dumping, your cortisol, everything in you wants to escape the situation, because now even a friend or family member coming over to visit is being perceived as a potential grizzly bear. So, yes, everybody can develop agoraphobia at any time in their lives, especially when you're coming off a chemical that directly affects a part of the brain that inhibits the part of the brain that causes agoraphobia. I mean, it's so it's so elementary. I mean, the fact that any therapist or counselor wouldn't believe that, to me, is an indication to get the hell out of there. This is a dangerous person. You know what I mean? This is a person that's not equipped. I wouldn't, you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic that didn't know about oil leaks or something. It's like, how are you going to help me? A workbook of the ABCs of CBT? Is that what it's been reduced down to? Thank God we went to school for 6 to 10 years so we can hand people, workbooks. Not to say that those workbooks aren't beneficial. They absolutely are. But I mean, on the behalf of the clinician, it's so damn lazy. So yeah, agoraphobia, we can develop it anytime, especially during benzos. Huge portion of my clients develop it, like at least 80% develop some form of agoraphobia for some period. And here's what I always say, guys, and this is probably the most important thing I'm going to tell you in this video here. Even after you're healed, 2, 3, 4 years out, you can remain highly agoraphobic. And agoraphobia is not something that you wake up and it just resolves one day, right? It is not a storm that passes. Agoraphobia, especially agoraphobia, requires a lot of gradual desensitization, a lot of exposure therapy, a lot of cognitive therapy. I mean, it's really something you have to engage, or it can persist, it can manifest, it can go away even with work and then come back. So it's a constant, it's almost like managing diabetes. You have to do the work and you will get the results for sure. And the good news about agoraphobia is, man, you can get great results in 6 to 8 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, hell, sometimes 2 weeks. I have clients that, I'm just surprised. I'm like, oh my God, you're doing that, already? You were terrified of bridges and now you're walking over bridges and taking selfies. I mean, you were terrified that you couldn't even drive your car to the grocery store. Now you're grocery shopping in 2 or 3 weeks. Granted, very, very tough situation for them, but here they were, and they're fighting and getting their life back, and they're starting to win, and they're starting to trust in their nervous system, and they're starting to believe that they can make a recovery. So I'm trying to think if I covered everything there. Yeah, I guess in gist, agoraphobia definitely can develop during benzos. I know one more thing I want to touch on is I often get this where people will say, but I never had agoraphobia. This has got to be benzos. It's like, it's benzos in the sense that benzos help crack the ice. But even after benzo healed, even if it cracked the ice and 6 weeks later you were 100% healed from benzos as part of it, like the organic chemical withdrawal that could influence this GABA problem, it doesn't matter. You have agoraphobia. Go back, and if you haven't already, and watch Hoarders. Love that show. I mean, 98% of those people are highly agoraphobic, and they're OCD. They're almost always tied with some form of grief, inability to grieve. If you look at it, they're all, almost 100% of them. Listen to those stories. Somebody died, and as a coping mechanism, they couldn't let go of something, and they held on, and it became a full-blown obsession. And before you know it, they just collect garbage and live in this prison inside their house. And they're agoraphobic. They can't leave. They're just riddled with anxiety, which only kind of reinforces this phobic OCD, hoarding disorder that they've developed. So there's some things to think about. Let me know you guys' thoughts. If you have any more questions, I'll try to answer them. And one more thing. The person that wrote this comment, I love cats 420. At the final closing, they write, by the way, I've been on Valium for 15 years, 12 years at 30 milligrams a day. I'm down to 10 now, but I can't go lower. Well, first off, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the question. And congrats on coming down that low. I mean, you've climbed 2/3 of Mount Everest, 12 years at 30 milligrams. Mine was 10 years at like almost 40. So I feel you. I really feel you. That final 10 is very important. And that's where, now look, I'm going to sound biased, but look, I believe in my program. And I say my program is created by me taking things from all these other programs and all these other, discoveries and things like that. But all these other sciences. But if nothing else, taking what is useful, rejecting what is useless, as Bruce Lee once said, create a program, work it diligently, and grow and get stronger. And that last 10 milligrams doesn't have to be the hardest part of this journey at all. In fact, I think the last 10 in a lot of ways was the most transformative for me. I really think you're probably really close to turning that corner between 10 and 7 milligrams. I would say these next 3 milligrams, you're really going to start turning the corner. And between 7 and probably 3, it's going to, it's still going to be tough, but something's going to happen around 4, 5, maybe 3 milligrams and under. I think the sun really starts to come out. The drug's losing its sheer potential, potency, so to speak, in its withdrawal, because there's not enough drug in your system to withdraw, and it's just it tends to be diminished. So there's something to look forward to. But I will add this: getting your mind right, getting healthier, getting a program, working it. I mean, recovery needs to be a part-time job. You need to spend 1 to 4 hours a day just recovering. That's your job right now. If you're not working, that's your job. Part-time job, rehabilitation, operation rehabilitation. And I got a lot of videos on that and a lot of thoughts on that, and I'll be sharing more stuff. Okay, guys. Thanks for the support as always. Love you. Godspeed.